Welcome to the Daily Edge. Steve, Jake, Mark, we are the Noodlebergs. Let's find our edge that starts with the affirmation. I am content to run my race and run it my way. I know that may create obstacles for me on my path, but I will not subdue myself for the expectations of others. The question of the day.
A doozy.
Can your brand cost you opportunities? The question of the day.
A doozy.
Can your brand cost you opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, you got a shining example, that's living right in front of our faces that, the answer is yes.
Well, can your dad's brand cost you opportunities? I think which is what an interesting conversation for us to have.
Right.
I think we're talking about the draft.
Especially if your brand aligns with your dad.
Correct.
Right?
Last week was the draft. Shedeur Sanders, which we announced would go in the first round, did not.
One of our best performing pieces of content was me talking about him guaranteed to go in the first round, and none of that happened. So he slips all the way to the fifth round.
Now, you did not get paid to do that. There were people who got paid large sums of money to predict that he would do that, and he did not.
Well, for those of you, if you don't know, Shedeur Sanders is a football player, the son of Deion Sanders, played at Colorado, already has his jersey retired, would be the first Colorado player to have his jersey retired, was supposed to go top 5, like we said, first round, ultimately went 5th round to the Browns. But I really do love this conversation because when it's not yours, you kind of have to play by the rules, right?
So this is like, I love this topic and this conversation because it's something that we like wrestle with as a business and as a society, which is like, it's okay to be cocky or it's okay to have confidence, right? Just as long as that confidence isn't cockiness. And it's okay to have confidence just as long as you're not too loud. And it's okay to say you want to do it your way, just as long as you don't say it the wrong way. And I think that's what we're really talking about today is Shedeur, whether he had bad interviews with teams, whether he was too boisterous about what he was going to do and how he was going to do it, whether his dad, Deion, was too involved in the process and said too much. Turns out you're never bigger than the system. It doesn't matter. And as long as your future is determined by other people's decisions, you got to play the game some kind of way.
Or deal with the consequences. So, here's an example of all the Deion talk over the last couple of years has been, look at him. He came in with unbelievable confidence. He has changed the direction of the Colorado college team, and all of the players that went in there. But you have a shining example of somebody who played on that team who's just a generational talent who got drafted number 2.
I was about to say.
And he didn't say one fucking word. All he did was show up with enthusiasm and excitement. And he went to a team he didn't think he'd go to. And so
Are you saying that he did it right and Shedeur did it wrong?
No.
Okay.
I'm not at all. I'm just saying you're looking at 2 different ways to do it. I don't say that there's anything right or wrong, but is it hard for us to believe that Shedeur showed up unprepared for an interview? Is that hard to believe? I don't know. Is it hard to believe?
I would say it's not hard to believe.
Right.
I would say I could see that happening.
If they already told people, if you draft us and we don't want to play there, we're going to take our ball.
Plenty of first picks have looked at other teams and said, I'm not working out because I'm going number 1, right? It never looks good when you fall to the 5th round, right? And there are plenty of examples. So I want to start here because everybody gets on their high horse here and they're like, character outgoes success, and everyone's posting the motivational quotes. And don't forget that there are a million convicts that still play in the NFL, right? Like, don't forget that. And if you have talent, they will find a place.
And there were plenty of bad character people who got drafted in the first round in the history of the NFL.
This year,
you could go through a laundry list of people that had character issues and red flags off the field.
The character issue that I believe the NFL won't put up with is going against the program or being bigger than the team, or being bigger than the shield.
And I think that's the overriding
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the topic is. They don't care. It could be.
It's never about you.
It's never about you, and it's about the remember that.
So
right?
you asked the question: can a dad's brand hurt you? And I think the answer is yes, because people said, we don't want that circus here, man. You know, this is a complete distraction. And if you're building a football team, you can't have distractions.
But it's so interesting because there's so much opportunity that has come from that brand.
Yeah.
Colorado is not Colorado without Deion being Deion.
Or Shedeur being Shedeur.
Shedeur is not Shedeur without, and to be fair, like we talked about it, he really didn't, he lost what could have been in terms of financial compensation for his NFL career in the first 3 years, but he's gotten paid really well
for listeners,
already.
I want to preface for the people who maybe don't follow football. He had all the accolades and awards and stats to be a first round draft,
and he is probably a first round talent.
He has the tape.
Everybody would, people who make a living grading NFL talent would say that he's a first round talent.
And there are lots of people who have like come out and been like, "Oh, well, we had him as a second, third round grade, whatever."
That's
I think that's ridiculous.
Right. Here's what a comment that I heard that it really got me thinking. It said, Deion thinks he has this relationship with the NFL and with all of the NFL executives, and like, if that were the case, don't you think somebody would have reached out and said, "Hey, dude, man, your boy's not on anybody's board." Like nothing, zero, blind. So what? That relationship is not.
Do you think Deion would have told him to act any differently?
No, I don't.
Right.
I think they're defiant. That would be an adjective.
I love this part because everybody continues to. I don't know that beat down is the right word, right?
Yeah.
Or root against the Sanders family.
Sure.
Right.
Oh, I'm not one of those people.
Right.
I think he became a coach at Jackson State, and I don't want to make a Shedeur show about, Deion, but obviously the makeup of Shedeur comes from Deion. And, people said, oh, well, the way he's doing things at Jackson won't work. And then it won't work at Colorado. And they continuously do it their own way. And obviously have had tremendous success. I don't see them stopping acting the way that they are
until you run into the NFL.
Well, right. So like this, I think this is
800-pound gorilla, man. It's don't fuck with the NFL.
So I really want to drive it to like the individual, which is like for us, right? Like we teach people to build brand. We each build a brand to be out there. But you have to be aware that if you're going to do that authentically, if you're going to do it the way you do it, there are people who are going to go, nope, not for me, right? That you're never going to have the opportunity to defend yourself against, that you're never going to have the opportunity to explain anything. You're just going to have to accept that people choose not to like you based on what they see. That's not really a problem until your future rides on that.
Well, so let's talk about us. You guys are a derivative of my brand. I built my brand first. You jumped in. You're making it your brand. On the ball means, is a part of you. But our world is the oyster is, how many people?
Endless.
I'm willing to say, if you don't like me, that's fine.
Right.
There's still plenty of choices. There's only 32 teams.
Right. Like, so this becomes a very interesting conversation.
If you're in a smaller pond, making those kind of waves is a real tragic decision, because at some point you have to live by some of the rules.
So, and I was actually having this conversation last night. I could actually see him being the day one starter. Him going into camp and absolutely lighting it up.
He's the second betting favorite to be day one
starter. And be day one starter. I could also see him not make the roster and get cut. So I really do. I think it's that he's that polarizing. And I also think there's a chance that he does one or the other, and it's that clear cut. But for somebody who, if you have like you said, smaller pond, right? Like if your real goal is to work for this one brand, and that one brand says, this is who you have to be, this is what you have to say, this is how you have to act. It's an unbelievable decision that has to be made for an individual, because is it worth sacrificing who you are to fit into what somebody else wants?
You've sat on here before and we've talked about it, and you've talked about overachievers in businesses or high achievers.
Yeah.
And if they have toxic traits, and I believe it's that chart you've created as well.
Core values versus performance.
And I might be mistaken here, but your recommendation is to get rid of those people, right? If they
anybody who has super high performance and super low core values,
toxic,
get them out.
So you would be on the side of supporting, not driving or not drafting Shedeur?
I don't see. So this to me is the outside brand,
and that's not me putting it on. You know.
So if I was in the seat with Shedeur, right, and let's just say it was competitive and everything was like you need to take him or not take him, I would have taken him because to me there's nothing out there in his brand that says, "Ooh, he's a bad guy." Never arrested, never out drinking and driving, no kind of gambling, like. All of the red flags that Johnny Manziel had, and Johnny Manziel still went first round.
I saw a tweet that said Johnny Manziel was an alcoholic and still went first round.
Right. Like, so, like, to me,
Ryan Leaf. I
mean, your big problem is can I deal with a overbearing father?
So that's where you made the connection,
right? So
like you're a coach, right? Forget about the Sanders family, another family where the dad comes to the interview with them.
So it's like the show Ballers, when like Ricky Jay with his buddy and Rock's got to deal with it.
Get out of here!
We dealt with this in recruiting. This is not something new. We dealt with this in recruiting.
If the dad comes to the interview, you already know you've got a problem.
So what I would tell you is, I think it's kind of poor form by the NFL to not be like, well, we can control it. Now, also, there's like a financial thing here, right? So like, there's so many layers to this that really make it what it is. Because the reality is that Cleveland ended up seeing, well, we can get him for much less money, which creates unbelievable value for us. So awesome. Now, I would say, as the head coach of the team or the GM of the team, don't worry, I'll take care of it.
I got it.
We need this kid is a first round draft pick that we can take in the third or the fourth round at this point. Take him.
Well, I think
like as soon as he slipped to the second round,
I think
like,
if you talk about cultures and leadership, rather if you're in business or in sports, where obviously you use sports as an example, but you have to create that environment where you feel you can corral that talent, right? Because I think part of that talent is having that little ego. Right. I think you have to have.
I want a guy that wants to step into it,
and wants it, and so for the Cleveland.
How do you make sense of this? There were other quarterbacks taken ahead of him that were clearly not as good as him.
I don't know.
I mean, Jalen Milroe, he's okay, but you think he's going to be a great starting quarterback?
So it's funny though.
Depends on why they took Jalen Milroe versus.
Do you want the best culture ever, or do you want to win football games, or do you want to drive business? Like, at a point, having a skill that you cannot teach someone else is important. Right? There's points on a scoreboard. There's revenue that has to be generated. And at the end of the day, sometimes an asshole is going to win because they're better, right? They have better skills. And so, but you talk about it, like you talk about Jalen Milroe. Like, Jalen Milroe's interview was incredible.
Right.
He walked in and
he's a good human.
So listen, like, he walks into his interview and they have his tape on and they said, what do you, in your words, what do you do well? And he goes, I do this well, I do this well. And they're going, in your words, what don't you do well? And he started listing like 15 things. And they were like, don't you think that that's a problem, that you're like conveniently pointing out your flaws? And he goes, anybody who's leaving college going to the NFL that doesn't have all these flaws is lying to you. And he goes, I'm not lying to you. I'm just telling you I'm working on them.
I did not know that.
I'm just telling you I'm working on them.
His brand
different.
It's very
Third
different.
round draft pick, right? Which is great,
Right.
which is awesome.
I want that guy on my team.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? It's also a fact in the NFL that, I don't know, half the Pro Bowlers came from the third round or later, right? There is a factual statement that the NFL does miss on most of the draft pick, waste most of the money that they spend, watch their own favorite football team. Most of the first rounders never make it, right? So I think there's a little bit of balance where you use this, if you're Shedeur, to humble you a little bit, to drive you, but ultimately have the understanding that it isn't the end all be all. And you have to ask yourself the question, is this who I want to continue to be?
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Right,
Let me ask you this. If you're Nike, you like what's happening or you don't like what's happening?
If I'm Nike, I love it. I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever.
This is the greatest thing ever. Because this guy, like him or don't, is on everybody's mind.
Correct. And
you can't pay for that.
And so I think again, okay, so it's clear who you're affiliated with, who you're associated with can hurt you, right? Because I think probably it's really more of a we didn't take you because of your dad, more so than you, and more so than your brand. Maybe he went into the Giants interview and said, I'm not reading the install. I'm not taking this meeting because I'm not going to play here and we're not going to do this. Maybe he did that, right? I'm not saying he did. I don't know. I mean, there's reports that his Giants interview went absolutely terribly.
He was unprepared.
Where he was unprepared.
Defiant is different than unprepared.
Yeah. So any of it, it went bad, right? There's a certain way of doing business. And if he wanted to guarantee himself a first round pick, he plays the game. Now, if playing the game is not true to who he is, then good for him that he's doing it his way and he's going to take the lumps and take all of the things that come along with that, which to me is self-awareness. It's the ultimate definition of self-awareness. I don't care what you're going to do to try to keep me down. I know I'm good enough. I know I can do it my way, and I'm going to.
It'll be what it'll be.
And I can live with that. Like, wow, what an unbelievable statement for people to look at.
And if he plays well, they look stupid.
Right.
Him.
Oh, that's the key here. Like I have mad respect for him. Experience this whole thing. He's a kid,
right? He's 21.
He has already made a lot of money being who he is.
Right.
They're allowed to generate wealth right now in college. That gave him a little bit of I have leeway to act how I want, and now it might be right or wrong, but I think all of us eventually have to make that decision where you either play by the system or you don't, and you have to own the consequences of either side.
I mean, I still think the fact remains is that he's only been coached by his dad.
Yeah.
That is a red flag for a new coach.
Sure.
Like, how do I corral this guy when he's only been coached? I have no basis of how that works.
I see no problem.
No?
I do think that there's something to be said.
I do and I don't, but I like...
Particularly for Shedeur, like he's been with other trainers and he's been around other people, so like there's probably some context there. But I agree with you, Dad. I think like I gotta be able to look at you and go, "Hey, are you going to be okay when Dad's not here? How are you going to be? Forget about that for a second. I can deal with that. He can talk about whatever. I can handle that. I'm a leader. I can handle the outside noise. For you, what's going to happen to you? And so I think the takeaway I'm walking away with from this conversation is, number one, you better have the self-awareness to know if you're going to try to do it your way, you better be damn talented. You better know, you better have no doubt that you're good enough and willing to put in the work. Because if you don't have those components and you try to do it your way, it's going to be a long road for you.
And not fold when it doesn't go your way.
Correct.
I mean,
and deal with all the obstacles that come along with it.
Right. He did, man.
He owned all of them.
Yeah, correct. I am rooting for him to be great.
Same. And if he flops, then what? If he flops, so what? He did it his way.
Blame it on the Browns.
Right. Then he'll be a coach on his dad's team.
Oh, yeah. There it is. Nepotism at its finest. Thank you for finding the edge with us. Remember to like, comment, share it with a friend, share the conversation. We'll see you next time.